Hi, it's Liane from South Lanarkshire Council. So today we're going to be making a formaline card. This is a card that is like a miniature version of string art where you pierce holes in a specific pattern and then stitch using sparkly threads to create the image. I hope you enjoy the project. So the instructions come with one page of sewing instructions and one pricking pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut this out. It has measurements on it, so that helps deciding which size of card to work on. The card needs to be at least as big as the pattern. It can be bigger and you can just have more blank space around the pattern, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm cutting carefully on the dotted line. So the pattern's cut out, it's got writing on it, so the top bit, I know which way up it is. I'm going to position it into the card like this, on the front of the card, and moving the back of the card out of the way so that that doesn't get holes on it. I'm just going to prick through the front of the card. So I'm lining it up so it's got a nice even border all the way around it, because this pattern is slightly smaller than the card. I'm going to masking tape the pattern down to make sure that it stays in place while I'm pricking the holes in the pattern. And you could use a needle to prick through, or I'm going to use a pin because it's easier to hold. So I'm just going to work straight through. Work my way around the whole pattern. Around the whole of the pattern with the pin. Just have a check, hold it up to the light, and you can just check that you haven't missed any little holes or gaps. So this is now ready to start sewing. So I'm using sparkly thread, and I'm going to use a doubled over thread, which I've done for this card, and it gives a more bold pattern. You could use a single thread and it will give a more delicate effect to the pattern. So thread up the needle. And take both ends together. At this point you could either tape this to the back of the card once you've stitched through, but I like to just do a couple of knots, one on top of the other, to make the thread secure when we start the card. So I'm going to start with the leaf. The instructions have a list of the order in which to sew the pattern, and they are either numbers or letters. So the leaf starts at A, and you always start from the back. So sometimes it's quite clear which one to start from, but if it isn't as clear, what I tend to do is look for the central hole, which is near the thread, near the end of the stem. So that would be this one, B, and I would count round. Counting B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes from this one is where I'm going to start stitching at A. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's this hole here. So going in from the back and just pulling till the knot's there. I'm then going to take that thread out of the way, just making sure I'm not blocking any of the holes when I take the thread down with a bit of masking tape or sellotape. So out, the instructions are out at A and then in at B. And as you start to stitch, you'll see that most of the thread is visible on the front of the card. There's not a lot to see on the back of the card. We then move from B to C, so that is a single stitch on the back of the card, and it's working around in a clockwise direction. So I'm doing the mirror image, so it's going clockwise around the stem. So a single stitch from one hole to the next on the back of the card. And then C to D, so D is one stitch, one hole further over. Because the thread's quite long, it sometimes gets knots, just detangle them. So again, I'm going to move one hole over in a clockwise direction on the front of the card and cross to the next available at the base. One hole over. And each time just make sure that the thread is sitting nice and flat and pulling tight against the surface of the card. So that is the leaf completed. I found that I managed to sew about 4 or 5 of the leaves with the single thread, and I then needed to tape the end of the thread and start again with another piece. So what I would recommend to do is to sew all of the leaves first and then move on to the middle to do the stem stitch. But I'll show you just now how I would do the stem stitch for the centre stem. So the stem stitch would start in the first hole of the stem at the end of the leaf. And I'm going to miss out one of these holes and go along so to the next one. So, and I'm not going to pull it all the way tight because I want to be able to see that middle hole from the back going in to the centre. So it's moving 2 spaces forward and 1 step back. So now I'm going to go 2 forward. And this just gives a slightly twisted look and a thicker line, which gives a nice effect. So 1 step back. And as you work this at the back of the card, you'll see that you get a solid line, almost like a back stitch, just a solid line of small stitches starting to form. So again, missing one, coming home, back one, forward two, so keep going like this until you get a nice solid line. I'm going to count round from 1 to 2 on the pattern, counting the first hole as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So count on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and that is the very centre. Putting that flat. And then 3 is this hole here, which is on the circle. So again, working around single stitch at the back in a clockwise direction. Just going to pull both threads to make sure that sits flat, and then I'm going over to 4. Single stitch at the back. And so on, working my way around the petal. So that's the first petal completed, and then to start the next one, got plenty of thread left, so following the same direction, starting at 1 at the very tip of the petal and working in to the first petal. So to stitch the central circle, I'm going to start at number 1, which is between these 2 petals here. So again, put the knot and I would tape the back. So number 2 is, we count round 6 dots from here, and it's big, just horizontally opposite. Okay, so going across the front. And then following the same formula, number 3 would be this dot here, which is going clockwise round. And then going across to the next available hole there. Making sure it's pulled tight. So this is easy to see here, but had I filled in all of these petals, every time you will be working into a hole that already has thread in it. So that's the centre complete. So I would cut and tape that. Right, so I'll show you how to cover the back, because again it's a little bit messy on the back. So I'm gonna take a piece of like the same size card that I've just cut in half, and I'm gonna put some double-sided tape along the edges. And just try to stick it quite close to the edge. Just going to lift that to stick it closer. With a border double-sided. Can be tricky to peel away. And then I'll take this and line it up with the back of the card. And then just press down the edges. Just going to smooth that out, it's a little bit bigger. So that's sitting nice and flat, and the card is finished. So I hope you've enjoyed doing this formal-line card project. There are lots of different patterns available online, and writing like happy birthday, happy Christmas, different occasions. So once you've tried one and know the formula, you can apply it to all the different cards. Thank you very much for doing this project, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Goodbye.